The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
Like, just drop in fish during, like, Lent season.
Or just
like,
generally have a fish option.
Yeah, like...
That's a good point. They can get away with that.
They could definitely get... Like, so many places do that, though, right? Where it's like you put in the fish option for all of Lent, and that's the only time you have it the entire year. But, like, how hard is it to just split out one of your fryers and just drop
Especially
white fish in there?
because I feel like canes would be popular in the South, which is heavily religious.
Yeah, right. Like...
It's got to be popular in the South.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
They didn't raise the canes. Yeah.
Raise the canes.
But then there's like
The canes will rise again.
Here's the thing, though. Like, if we're talking about the South and chicken, you get into that really complicated discussion of the Popeyes and the Zaxby's and the churches and the on down the line.
Right.
I was real well acquainted with the churches that was half a mile from my house when I lived in St. Louis.
Yeah. Also, I love St. Louis is the South. Let's be honest.
It really is.
But my friend will deny that until the day he dies.
It's like the South Light. Like Bud Light, it's like the South Light, because I can go to my Waffle House and I can go to my churches and I can go to my.
It's also just
I've
stinky
never been
hot.
to a Waffle House yet.
Waffle House is great.
Is Waffle House here?
No.
Oh, I was gonna
St.
say,
Louis
yeah.
is. I'm pretty sure the furthest north Waffle House goes.
Yeah, probably.
Like,
That makes a lot of sense.
Although people talked about In-N-Out Burger, and I thought that was pretty underwhelming.
You didn't like it?
In-N-Out was.
It wasn't
fine.
bad, but
Like-
it wasn't like, this place is sick.
I think
Have you done Whataburger? Because that's the like. Because Whataburger is the Texas one that is
supposed to be legit.
It is, and it's like I like both of them a lot. I like In-N-Out because it's super cheap.
Like
you can
Cane's-
get a
Yeah,
good
so
In-N-Out
In-N-Out
meal
is
for like $6.
quick and cheap, and
Yeah.
I think that when you qualify with that, then
Cane's is
super
a good
fine.
example of like a franchise where it's like, for whatever reason, like they're just like,
Yeah.
hit, like
yeah,
a
but
really good sweet
you
spot.
pay for it. Like that's
I don't think it's that expensive. $7.50.
well, I got the big one, so it's more than that. But like
Dude, the key is you get
the
no,
3 tender.
no drink.
Oh yeah,
No, just get no
See,
drink.
the sweet tea's really good though.
Takes 80 cents.
The sweet tea's real good.
that is so St. Louis.
I love
Sweet tea.
I love sweet tea. That is like one of my unabashed Southern things. Is that I really greatly enjoy sweet tea.
Sweet tea is delicious. I just don't drink drinks with sugar in it.
And that's one of those things is like if you're getting sweet tea, Waffle House's sweet tea is like the quintessential Southern sweet tea in my opinion because it's like drinking straight liquid sugar.
Yeah, I bet. I bet it's actually their syrup.
It probably is, and it's delicious. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing.
yeah.
It's super. It's like this is what sweet tea is supposed to taste like. It's not supposed to taste like tea anymore.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right.
That's funny.
Do we want to start?
We can probably start.
Do you want to leave that in?
I don't care.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Anyway, now we will acknowledge that this is the Minnesota Soccer Podcast, previously brought to you by the Raising Cane's that I brought into the studio tonight. Whatever. I forget what their slogan is. Whatever. Not
Goes
worth it.
down smooth. every time.
Sure.
Oh, God.
Well, all right. That was Nick
The
Hallett. as you
Canes will
probably
rise
know.
again. That's
That was a quote that Tom Schreier said earlier tonight.
I think that's on the pod. Maybe.
It might be on the pod. If it's not, it's on the pod now. I'm David Naylor. I'm your host. As usual, it's a Tuesday night. Everything's weird, and we're just kind of getting off to that kind of note. Anyway, we should talk about Minnesota United first, even though there's been a lot of spicy and delicious World Cup action. United played last night. I don't know how many people actually watched it. The stream was interesting quality. So it's as with the previous round of the game, it was streamed on U.S. Soccer's website. It was a slightly more reliable stream than the stream for the Cincinnati game. And I enjoyed the commentary better, even though it seemed like it was like one of Houston's commentators doing a solo broadcast, which was challenging. But the guy knew his stuff for the most part. My favorite, small-time U.S. Open Cup isms of the broadcast were two things. Number one, in the score display at the start of the game, you had the Houston logo and the Minnesota logo. You had the logos right, and then you have Houston against North Texas in the name labels.
Nice.
So you got the logo right, but you didn't change the name label from last week.
Nice.
So that was the first thing. The second thing was at some point early in the second half after Houston scored was they like crossed over the Jumbotron feed with the streaming feed and put up one of those like stadium birthday greeting things to some dude named Dylan Wolpers. So shout out to Dylan Wolpers. Happy birthday. It was your birthday yesterday. And there were a lot of jokes made about Dylan Wolpers. I personally said that Dylan Wolpers should have been Minnesota United's third sub in the game. And so it was just one of those things that it's like just pops up for like 15 seconds, like in the middle of a Minnesota United attack.
That's funny.
And it's just like, all right, we're on the B stream tonight.
Was it? I had one question from watching it. Why was there so few people there?
I have no idea, but the crowd was pathetic.
It was like, because you know how sometimes in Europe, like games will be played in an empty stadium because a team gets
it looked like that
suspension or a ban of some sort for some poor behavior, and that's what it looked like. Yeah, it looked like Houston's fans were banned from that game.
And it's like there was a Monday night game, and it looked like from some of the camera shots they showed, they weren't doing anything too complicated, but there were fans in the like near side of the seats. So, like, the angle that we're not getting at all on the camera.
Yes.
So, like, there were people there, but it's just, like, the shot that was shown, it looks like because there's nobody across the side of the stadium.
We could look it up. I think it's relatively irrelevant, but I think Houston's usually lower on the
attendance totem pole.
Yeah.
Do they play in the football stadium?
No, they have their own stadium.
Yeah, they have their own. That's the other thing. It's like, how are they supporting that stadium with that week of attendance? But like I said, I think usually they're on the lower end when it comes to the MLS teams.
Do you think the Monday thing matters? It was weird when I looked at their schedule and it's like, oh, that's right. They're not playing, on the weekend.
Houston did not tweet their attendance.
Yeah.
That kind of doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it does not surprise me.
So, anyway, there was a game played. It was much more fun watch.
What if it said Houston Dynamo tonight's attendance, Greg?
Shout out to Greg. Greg and Dylan.
Yeah,
that's the squad.
And Dylan.
So, United played. They ran out a mostly full-strength lineup for this game, and it started out looking like they had run out a mostly full-strength lineup for the game, and Darwin Quintero looked like a dude who had had 2 weeks off and was fresh and ready because he was dancing early in this game,
creating a lot of chances,
and no one was finishing them. Being the important thing to note, I was pretty happy with a lot of United's performance in this game, especially going forward, and It seemed like a lot of people were way more down on them than I was. Like, I think in terms of attacking opportunities, they were inches away from scoring 3 or 4 goals in the first half of this game. Like, right on the edge of the head, on the edge of the foot, just barely scraping past people with chances. And, like, on another night, somebody's half a step faster, ball is a little bit more accurate, they just destroy Houston in this game. It didn't happen, but like I am not crushed by this result.
I hear you, and I think there's a lot of validity to what you're saying, because I think we've spoken about it numerous times that this team at times really does demonstrate a clear offensive upside. But I think it is a worrying trend that they continue to not finish consistently, including Mr. Ramirez.
Yep, and
I think
Ramirez had one chance in particular that I thought he should have finished and done much better with. 70 minutes in.
One of the 2 late ones?
Yeah, one of the 2 late oons.
Yep.
That he for sure had, but it was probably right before he came off for Toy, I want to say.
I feel like an informed Ramirez the fact that you kind of feel like an informed Ramirez would finish one of those, and both of them were pretty decent chances.
Yeah, the second one in particular, it was crossed right onto his foot from Darwin and just got no power on it, hit it right at the keeper.
And the one before that where he took it down his chest was pretty awesome too. And it's clearly like not to give opposing teams the clear scouting report, but it's something that it's a set play almost that Ramirez, when Darwin picks it up on the right hash, he'll immediately trail behind the nearest center back and look for the over-the-top ball.
He loves that over-the-top ball, and it works so much of the time to a degree.
When they do it, Quintero's put it on a dime to Ramirez a few times. They haven't been able to finish it off.
Yep.
But it's a great set play. They need more of those into Ramirez, and I think they need more variants of guys who can finish, because that's the thing too, is like Miguel can maybe chip in the odd goal here and there, and he's done that this season, right? And that's when he's done that, what has happened? The team's won or had good results. But otherwise, so much of this team's offense just leans completely and exclusively on Ramirez and Quintero, and both of them are struggling to finish at the moment, and therefore the team struggles to get results.
And that was one of the points that I took away from this being a little bit more positive is the primary starting player that you're missing from this squad is Ibsen, who, for all of the Ibsenisms he does take some of the load off of the offensive players just with being able to possess the ball and do stuff, and has shown this year that he can chip in an odd goal every now and then too. So I think that, no offense to Colin Warner, I thought was much better in this game than he had been in the previous game.
In his previous start?
Okay. Yeah. I was much happier with his performance in this game. And Colin Martin, I continue to be pretty impressed with how he's
I thought you were talking about Colin Martin just there.
Both. Because they both played in the
Both played well.
Because they did the 4-3-3. And I was happy with them, but it seems like how Ibsen connects with the people in front of him is more beneficial to the attacking elements of this team.
Well, and I think Colin Martin has played for DC United, and Colin Warner's played for Houston Dynamo and like 3 other MLS teams, and Ibsen's played in the Champions League.
Yep.
So I think that's the difference.
Well, and it was the point that actually the Houston commentator made, or whoever was commentating on this game. I'm assuming it was Houston related. Yeah,
it was Greg.
Made actually a really good point going into the second half that Houston had played a slightly lower tier starting lineup than their normal lineup. As an example, their first sub to come on in the 60th minute was Albert Elise, who's pretty freaking good. And Minnesota, between the starting 11 and the 7 they had on the bench, had pretty much gotten their best 11 players they had with them out there. And it was...
Eventually, or you're saying for the most part?
I would say of the squad, they had the best 11 out there to start.
Other than the midfield, Warner and Martin wouldn't be a part of the best 11.
Ibsen wasn't in the squad.
You're saying...
I'm saying of the 18 they had available for selection. Not of overall. Of the 18 they had available for selection that night.
Sure.
And it was pretty visible in the changes. Because the 3 changes they made all had head-scratching moments in the end of this game. Alexi Gomez, who came on at left back, which was interesting.
I like it, though. That's an offensive.
It's an offensive
move.
Yeah, it's an offensive change, and it worked well to a degree. But Gomez's decision making continues to be something of a question mark for me.
It's actually kind of fun because you're almost like, what is this guy going to do? He's going to do one thing.
Because every now and then it works, but it hasn't worked to a degree enough for the boneheaded decisions to be justified.
Yeah, and there's other top level guys, in different leagues and stuff that like will do a few boneheaded things, but their end product at time.
The upside hasn't gotten there for what the downsides have been so far.
Yes.
Second one,
I'm enjoying him though.
Second one was
we're happy for you.
Was Franz Pangop, who came on. Who did he come on for? He came on for.
Who was playing on the left, or was it Miguel?
It was Miguel, but I know Miguel stayed in the whole game because he was the person who got the penalty committed on them.
Right.
I'm going to just check so that I don't sound foolish.
Was it Abu?
Later. Abu was not in the 18 for this game.
Why?
I have no idea.
Interesting.
That's peculiar.
Pongop came on for Colin Martin. So Pongop came on, and then was on the right in midfield, and just had some plays that he just missed. Like the 2 that come to mind for me was they were attacking late in the game. I think it was after the penalty, and he had a cross-field ball to get switched to him like at the edge of the 18, and it just went right through him out of bounds. And the other one was he and Darwin tried to do a short corner on the right side when we had a corner kick and just totally messed it up.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I had some high hopes for Peng Up and Bertrand, the two Cameroonians coming into the squad in the offseason. But one of the things you can kind of tell with Adrian Heath is if someone has quality and if someone has ability, he will insert them into the lineup quickly or find different ways to do so, i.e. getting Jerome Thiessen like 2 days before last season started, immediately starts him. Eric trades for Eric Miller, puts Eric Miller directly into the starting lineup, signs Alexi Gomez on loan, almost immediately puts Alexi Gomez in the starting lineup. So if he trusts someone and if he sees their ability, and
they're going
the dude can obviously evaluate talent, he'll put them in. And so what's happened with Bertrand and Pangops, neither of them have regularly featured, and he clearly hasn't made an effort to put them in, which tells me all I need to know, unfortunately, is that their upside is for sure limited.
And like Pangop has gotten fringe appearances in the last month or so and just hasn't done anything with them.
And that's what I'm saying is that tells me the same phrase could be used at what he's done with his appearances at practice. Apparently, to Heath's eye, he hasn't done anything with that either.
So then the third sub, which this is kind of rehashing my recap of last night's game on zonecoverage.com, because I thought that the subs made interesting impacts on how the game developed. Mason Toye was the third sub, came in for Ramirez, and I thought Toye was decent. He had a chance that he absolutely should have finished, but he also was not helped by his team or by the opposing team particularly well. 5 minutes before the penalty that was called, he had I thought a very good shot for a penalty in the box where he got pulled down on a cross coming in. I got a replay of it. It's on my Twitter, and it looks like he's getting yanked down.
As bad as Harry Kane against Tunisia. Kane got wrestled down twice in that game.
Yeah, and it was borderline, and because the quality of the video was so bad and I'm not getting close-up slow-motion replays, I thought I would have called it but I admittedly have a slanted view on the game.
Sure. But fair enough. Penalty shout.
Penalty shout. Had another goal that he probably should have scored, and another kind of like a Ramirez chance where it just didn't get full strength on a cross that came right at his feet. And he was involved and in the right places when he was in the game. Now, if the argument is, should he have come on for Miguel Ibarra and they play two strikers and have Darwin behind to just so you have more dudes who can put the ball in the net?
Yeah. Maybe someone other than Miguel, because you could just know that you can rely on Miguel to be the fittest guy on the team.
Well, so then maybe you take, if you're in that situation, you've taken off Colin Martin and put on Pangop. You take off maybe Colin Warner and
Who
go
was
to
the third center mid?
Warner Schuler. Rasmus Schuler was
so maybe you take off Warner and be real. Again, he showed kind of wanting to do extra aggressive move with putting Gomez at left back. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, and why not? I mean, just that's another thing I do get a little confused with at times with Heath is dude, your team You show potential at certain moments, but in a lot of ways you're struggling. So why not throw caution to the wind at different times and try different things?
So the last moment was the penalty. Well, not the last moment. There were a couple things after that, but the penalty was the most important thing. Miguel Ibarra, I hope his face is okay, because that was a nasty fall he took. And it didn't... I'm not sure entirely if it was intentional by the Houston defender. It just looked like Houston defender might not have seen his run coming and got underneath him, but he had a nasty-looking fall.
Yeah.
So I hope he is okay. He played the rest of the game with a big old bandage wrapped around his head, but it did not look good for a couple of minutes. So it was a fair penalty shout, but I don't necessarily think it was egregiously they were trying to injure him.
If
that's fair. It was one of those things that happens.
Yeah.
The penalty wasn't good.
Yeah, how about that?
It was not a great shot by Darwin.
How about the scientist stepping up to the spot and smacking the post?
Yeah, that was
that's
and I think the keeper read the shot right too. I think Seitz went the right way.
Yeah, he was actually. That's the other thing is he did read it. It would have been a tough penalty to score regardless. But man, you really don't.
Well,
expect
Darwin's taken a penalty before this year and was fine. So I haven't looked up his history, but I felt pretty good about him stepping up to the spot to tie the game.
You got to think. I mean, penalties are so much a mental game. Mm-hmm. It's not about ability. So you'd think the guy who's Darwin's not young. The guy who's played at the highest level as long as he has, that's not really an issue.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. These things happen. And what I would say about this game, and I think you have the right narrative that like this is a team that at times dominated passages of this game. So it's just a truism of all soccer or any soccer game, be it World Cup, be it youth U11 game. You can be the better team, but for whatever reason, finishing chances will always be the heaviest weight, the thing that's needed the most. You can outplay anyone for 90 minutes and not finish any chances. You're not going to win that game. You have to finish chances. Even you could play beautifully. You could beat Brazil and Barcelona and play beautifully for an entire game. But it could be one ugly goal where some dude hits it off his own nose into the goal. If it goes in the goal and they win, and that team wins 1-0, that's what matters. Obviously Brazil's the better team in maybe this fake scenario, but that's not what matters. You need to finish your chances, and obviously that's been an issue for United different times this season, and especially so on Monday.
So United drop out of the U.S. Open Cup in the round of 16. They do not get the privilege of getting whooped by Sporting Kansas City in the next round.
That's the other thing. It's like they would have had to go play Sporting Kansas City on the road.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, who really? That's the funny thing. Is like
I do not think they get through the next round if they win this game.
Exactly. I think it would have been small progress for the franchise, yes, to get that far in the U.S. Open Cup, et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, it's irrelevant because the chances they beat Sporting KC were slim.
And like Cinderella runs can happen, one-off games can happen, but we've seen what it looks like when they go to Sporting Park.
That's the thing. If it was at TCF Bank Stadium, dang it, they should have beat. They could have beat Houston, and then who knows? But when
you're going to KC, that you win that game maybe 1 out of 10 times, if that.
That.
The last thing I want to touch on from this game was Adrian Heath had a quote from.
Real quick.
You got one?
I was just going to add, I guess you could maybe make the argument that KC wouldn't care as much about the U.S. Open Cup.
They won it last year.
So, I'm grasping at straws just to add to the point. You're right. They probably do care, but if they didn't care as much, maybe they field a slightly weak lineup, and United, as again something we've opined about, maybe they care about it more because they not as worried. They know they might struggle to make the postseason, so they go full strength, and then it's a different game. But yeah, it's kind of pointless.
Remember how KC played 2 homegrown players in the league match against Minnesota United and beat them 4-1?
Yes.
Yes. That's my statement on that.
Yep.
Anyway, Heath had a statement that got put out. He didn't. It's not like he didn't directly talk to media at all, other than the team media, just because I don't think people traveled to this game much. The statement that got put out through Team PR that was doing the rounds a little bit last night after this game. Obviously, we're disappointed, Heath said. I thought it was a little bit too late. I learned a valuable lesson today about this group, both individually and collectively, that will certainly help us moving forward. We've got to the stage now where we have to start to make some difficult and hard decisions on people, and that is what we will do. Ooh. I think tonight will turn out to be a really good night in the long term.
Whoa. He is just not afraid to be bold after games. It's so fun. That's awesome. And again, though, he's going down the same treaded path of he's pointing to the players after a loss. Like Heath after a loss just points right to that locker room. I mean,
he does though. It's so true.
I'm right, and I wonder how that affects the players and the relationship with them in some ways. But very interesting. And I think that that adds a slightly different story to it because it's like so often the story is like, oh, who can they bring in? Who can they bring in? That implies who's he going to cut? Who's he
It seems like the next transfer window, which opens in less than a month now because it opens in July. I think like July 10th or something like that. I think the outgoing pieces may also be as interesting as the incoming pieces.
And they might be, but I don't know that that's the window that the outgoing pieces happen.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a lot of these guys are on short-term contracts, so I think it's more by the beginning of next season or preseason who didn't get re-signed. That's the interest. That'll be where you really might see a max exodus.
So I thought that was an interesting if not, like the quote didn't surprise me, but it was an interesting angle to take after this. And to Heath's,
like Ramirez,
to Heath's point, I already said of the 18 available for this match, I thought that he started the best 11.
Yeah.
With the possible exception of maybe like Colin Warner from Maximiano. Like, and they didn't finish the job.
Yeah. The guys that are jumping in my mind is like, as getting the axe would be like maybe Colin Martin, maybe Alexi Gomez, because again, he's on a loan anyway, so you'd have to re-up that or something. So that makes sense that he would potentially go. But if we want to be kind of controversial, splashy, what have you, I mean, what if he's out on Ramirez? That could be an implication. And one, again, reason that could be the case, Ramirez is on one of the fattest deals on the team. I don't think that's necessarily the case. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Because who else is he out on? Like, who else is he upset? He's not upset with Shuttleworth. There's no way he's upset with Ibarra. He's not upset. Schiller's played far better than he did last year. I doubt he's upset that much with Schiller. Colin Warner, like, not a big enough player to be grandiose about after a game.
And it's like, and now
Pangoff just joined the team.
And you notice that if we want to call back to a month ago, we're not having the Calvo conversation right now.
Right.
Because they haven't looked exceptional without Calvo.
Boxall's been in the best form of almost anyone on the squad this past month or the month previous, whatever you want to say.
And Brent Coleman's fine.
And and Brent Coleman's on one of the cheapest contracts.
Yeah.
So who is he talking about? And you honestly, it kind of just points to Ramirez, Alexi, and mainly those two, and then a little Colin Martin. But the big name, kind of Christian. Honestly, I don't know who else he's pointing at.
And it's one of those
And Heath it would not shock me if Heath is upset and not afraid to throw darts at a striker of all positions. But
it feels like it would make more sense to me if he had someone like coming for Ramirez's position. But like neither Dunladi or Toy have been banging in goals left and right in the chances they've gotten either. So it would be a bold move to move on from Ramirez at this point. It's not that I can't see him not doing it, but
with Dunladi and Toy, you can be like, of course I expect nothing from Toy.
Yeah.
MLS draft picks usually provide nothing. He's the youngest kid on this team. Blah. He doesn't have to perform. That doesn't make sense. Dunladi almost won Rookie of the Year last year, and he's still super young. I don't expect him to be an accomplished finisher yet.
I was very interested that Dunladi wasn't in the squad yesterday.
Yeah.
I wish I knew why that was.
Yeah, But Christian, you could see where he's like, this dude's getting paid one of the highest contracts on the team, should be an accomplished finisher, has been almost called up to the U.S. men's national team, but I don't like his skill set. We're losing because we're not finishing. I just think some of these things seem to point at Christian.
And the other thing that may shift around with that is if you think about the fact that they seem like they may be trying to look into designated player slots more. If you can move on from Christian Ramirez's contract and bring in a designated player striker,
and when it comes to a team that has 2 designated player slots left, the position of all 11 positions that makes the most sense to use on a DP slot is striker.
Especially when you've got someone already right there to provide the service.
I'm not saying that I'm ready to, make this case in front of the judge, but I'm just pointing out that there's some evidence.
Some evidence?
Yeah.
Well, sleuthing.
And it's one of those things that it becomes more interesting the more results like this tend to pop up.
No.
Like this exact framework of a game where Darwin looks like he's in great form.
Yes.
At least in the first half of the game, I loved what he was doing. I loved the decisions he was making. I loved the passes he was creating. And United don't score a goal in this game. There's a narrative here that's pretty easy to construct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty easy to construct. Yeah. So I think we can leave that. The game against Colorado on Saturday will be interesting, not least because Colorado in every sport, but especially in a sport like this, has a significant home field advantage. We'll see what kind of shape United are in after a lot of their guys having two weeks off and not having played since Monday in this game. Playing at altitude sucks. And while Colorado have not been good this year, that is a game that I'm very interested in United's form in as they get back into league play. And they've got a busy month of July coming up. So this would be a good start. If they can go get 3 points in Colorado, that'd be a great start to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a lineup standpoint, it would be kind of be worth watching a little bit. If Ramirez's playing time were to start to dip, it would only add credence to the theory that we've kind of just opined on.
Well, and it's one of those things. Donladi wasn't in the 18 for this game. Donladi is fresh and rested and ready to go. If they start Donladi on Saturday, I think things are interesting.
It's so bizarre that he wouldn't be in the 18 if he's healthy.
Maybe he wants him for league play. If you want to really put stuff to your theory.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, because he did play. Donladi did play the full Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
The full 120 minutes of the Cincinnati game. So,
which was how long ago?
It was 11 days before this game.
I mean, that seems like plenty of time. Rest.
So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So with that, we can move on to the World Cup. We can transition with the result that most directly applies to Minnesota United and take a look. I know I watched a piece of this game. I know Nick has not watched it yet. Costa Rica, Serbia. I
watched that free kick.
As the squad that features two current Minnesota United players, and both of whom started in this Costa Rica game.
Pretty rad.
And from what I have heard, I'm going to try and watch this game on replay before our next recording next weekend. And obviously, Costa Rica will have played a second game at that point, and I want to see how Calvo looks. But Calvo played the full 90 in this game and played left wing back.
Yep.
Not in the back line.
Yep. Crazy, playing Calvo somewhere else than center back.
And had license to attack and did stuff. Costa Rica lost this game, but
narrowly
1-0 on a banger of a free kick from was it Kolarov, Alexander Kolarov. And I don't know, they've got hard games coming up because this group is brutal. But
so that's the thing is once I was looking at this group,
Brazil, Switzerland,
they actually kind of already might be out because they've got to go against Brazil still.
They have to beat Switzerland, and
Switzerland in that Brazil game looked like they kind of maybe proving themselves to be the second best team in that group. Mm-hmm. So Costa Rica
must beat Switzerland if they have a shot. And Switzerland looked good.
Exactly. And so let's even pretend that Costa Rica beat Switzerland. Then they're at 3 points playing Brazil.
Yeah.
Who, because they drew, need points.
Yep.
Because they're not going to be even satisfied finishing second in the group. They're going to want first in the group. Costa Rica, in a lot of ways, is already effed.
Yeah, they're going to need something special after dropping this game.
And it sucks. It sucks that it seems like, oh, wow, dude, the tournament just started. They played one game. But keep in mind, there's been qualification all up to this point. There's been lots of other games. And this is just how it shakes out. It's the World Cup. A lot of people call it the World Cup. But another way to phrase it, and it's the true name of it, is the World Cup Finals. Because this has been a tournament that's been played for years before these games.
But it's one of those things that looking at this as it relates to United in particular,
sure.
Costa Rica are going to play 2 more games no matter what.
Yes.
I assume that Calvo's going to get time in at least one of those games in some fashion. And the fact that he started and played 90 makes me think that he may have a more major part than I at least thought he was going to have in these 3 games. I want to see how Calvo is deployed at this level. I know he's been deployed differently and in the national team than he's been deployed at United for a while. But with United having played some games successfully, some games not, some games with pretty solid defense with the partnership of Brent Kallman and Michael Boxall in the back, and Heath continuing to experiment with a 4-3-3 whose pieces are not as secure. I don't know. I feel like there's a world where Calvo could slide into the midfield when he comes back.
I mean,
but
you're preaching to the choir. I've been saying that for a while, and we've been talking about that for a while.
I think particularly because the formation seems to be changing, and maybe that's just Heath messing with stuff for the Cup. But he's played a 4-3-3 both of the last 2 games, and if you play a 4-3-3 and make your midfield 3 Ibson, Schuler, Calvo in front of the back line that you have established now, I could run with that. And it's not like we talked about before when we were doing the 4-2-3-1, there's no place for him in the midfield. If he's trying to make a 4-3-3 work, it's easier to navigate because you don't have somebody slotted into that third midfield slot. And that's a way to make all of this work. And it seems like just formationally this may make sense.
Yeah, I like the idea that the 4-3-3 maybe is more conducive to Calvo. But I think the wild card and the piece that's going to maybe really undercut Calvo playing there is Maximiano.
Yep.
And how much Heath likes him or wants to see what he has in him. But again, maybe it's not worth it because Maximiano's on loan. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's necessarily worth investing in Maximiano because he might just go back to Brazil.
Yep.
And so giving him time, nurturing him, getting him acclimated to the squad isn't maybe worth it.
Well, and it seems like Maximiano's role in this setup would be to come off the bench and provide something different in a different style of game with United, like if United are playing in their best level. Because if you have the Ibson, Schuler, Calvo, like if Calvo gets on a yellow, like right at the end of the first half, maybe at the hour mark you sub Maximiano on, Calvo off, or set Maximiano on for Ibson just to like maybe shore things up a little bit more defensively with a bigger body, a bigger presence. And he's a guy that it seems like he can slot in kind of anywhere in that 3, and they can shift around to accommodate him. So it seems like his role might be one of a bench, midfield, plug-and-play kind of thing, rather than necessarily a starter with that group.
Sure.
Which would be a good thing to have. And
I just think it's like the dude has done it in the Costa Rican league before, which is not a top league, but not a nothing league, and done it with the best teams in Costa Rica, and then it's just a fact that it's easier to find a decent center back than it is to find an above average center mid.
Yep.
And if he can be that, I don't know why you wouldn't want that.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow that I think is more interesting now, partially because of what United's doing in addition to what Calvo's doing. So with that said, the rest of the World Cup, we are through an entire match day, plus 1 game as of today.
Russia beasting.
Nic Hallett, what were your 2 favorite games to watch from the first match day?
Yes. It was easy. There was a lot of good games. It's been a fantastic World Cup, but by far and away, Spain, Portugal, the 3-3 tie, and then Mexico's dramatic and unexpected 1-0 win over Germany were both phenomenal games. Especially impressed with how Mexico played against Germany.
Yeah, Mexico's counterattacking in that game was so much fun to watch.
Sumptuous.
And just like that's how that should look.
Yes.
Like
clinical.
It seemed like Germany weren't on their best form, especially defending.
That was the one. Actually, I mean, a lot of people are kind of giving Germany crap for this game, and that's so much because of their reputation, defending world champs, et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, I think the only real mistake they made is just not being able to cope with the counter and not altering their strategy at all to affect Mexico's counter. Otherwise, possession-wise, chances creation-wise, that was Germany as you'd expect, and they looked good. They created lots of good chances. There's no doubt in my mind that they'll score plenty of goals in their next 2 games based on how they played in that game. But for whatever reason, I don't know why Jurgi Löw would not adjust and wasn't ready for the counter. It was interesting.
I will pick 2 different games, and I will pick them not necessarily for the quality of the game because I think that the 2 Nick said were probably the highest quality matches that we saw, but instead for drama reasons. Argentina's draw with Iceland.
That is a snazzy one. That's a good choice.
Was a very good result, and it's Iceland coming in and continuing to do what no one expects them to do against the best teams in the world.
And has arguably the most controversial moment so far of the World Cup with Messi missing his PK.
Yep, that was a fascinating game, and one that was an interesting watch as a neutral, and that provides an interesting position because Croatia and Nigeria are both. You'd have to say that those are achievable results for Iceland to get out of this group.
I like it. Yeah.
They've gotten the point from the hardest matchup in this group.
Yeah. I mean, once you do that, you are very much in a captain seat situation.
They're in the conversation. They need a result against Croatia, with Croatia winning over Nigeria. But I'm interested to see how that develops, because they could get out of the group now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
And the other one, I would say, with a little bit of home bias, would be England-Tunisia. Because, again, drama reasons, Harry Kane doing Harry Kane things, in England largely failing before that, were interesting storylines. In addition to how Kane was treated by Tunisian defenders and by the referee for the majority of that game.
Yeah.
Because he got manhandled for a lot of the game.
Yeah, that was too bad, especially because that's so hard to swallow when Kane's getting tackled during a couple corner kicks, when Tunisia's, in my opinion, wrongly awarded a penalty, the other way. So that's frustrating. And I don't know, did you think it was a penalty on Kyle Walker?
Yeah.
You saying that because he went to Man City?
No, I'm saying it because it was a really dumb play. He gave the opportunity for it to be called. Anytime you put your arm up like that,
just threw himself into that.
Yeah, but he's got his arm up in the box next to a defender. You got to be smarter than that. It was a boneheaded Kyle Walker move.
It kind of was.
That happens. The table
still soft, but fair.
Happens.
I see your argument. I think it's fair.
So that said,
but Kane coming through clutch.
Mm-hmm.
Clutch.
Right when the team needs him, gets the double as the captain, carries him through the first game.
Man, did he ever! And that's an element that England's never been short of being technically sound and talented and tactically adept. But if they can add an element of clutch, an element of being able to rise to the occasion, and Kane maybe can do that. Dele Alli's another guy who's kind of proven to be able to do that in a Tottenham shirt. And so is Jesse Lingard. Jesse Lingard for Manchester United has scored in cup finals multiple times, and that's incredible for how few times he's actually played for Man United. So if this England team can add that, there is potential. There's very much real potential there.
Absolutely. So we have a little bit of extra interesting stats and moments just from looking at score lines from the first match day +1. Currently, best goal difference in the tournament is the home team at +7 after 2 games.
For sure.
Which Saudi Arabia were awful in that first game. That was not great to watch.
One of the things that came away from the first match day was that Saudi Arabia and Panama were
awful,
out of their depth.
And it is unfortunate, but that's reality. Russia 3-1 Egypt today. I have not gotten to watch matches today at all. I'm interested in how that game went, because I expected a little more from Egypt than that.
They did well. And actually, it was as even as it was a boxing match with just both sides getting in punches. It was a great opening period. Both teams going up and down well, creating chances, and Egypt just made a really boneheaded mistake. Gave Russia, it was an own goal, gave Russia that lead, and Russia kind of just was able to use that momentum and finish off a couple more chances really well. And again, it's just host countries always do so well.
Yep.
So Russia will have that, and it wouldn't surprise me if they use that and go all the way to the quarters and the semis. Although based on their talent would be unheard of, is possible. And
the Group A, the 2 teams coming out of that group could be settled tomorrow, just because how results have shaken out. Russia are on 6 points and have a massive goal difference, and Uruguay, Saudi Arabia is tomorrow morning. You would expect Uruguay to win that and join Russia on 6 points, and Egypt and Saudi Arabia will be out of the tournament.
I'd say we can even just, if you have a pencil, if you could just check that off.
There are a couple. Well, and that's the games tomorrow all 3 of these games could be really ugly, and if they're not, they're huge upsets. Because the 3 games,
what are the other 2?
Portugal, Morocco, and Iran, Spain.
Yep. Yeah, both those should go how that you would expect.
Yeah, Iran, Spain. If Iran get a result in that is the best result in the history of their country. Seriously. In international soccer, I would guess.
Yes, good point.
And after they got the win on match day 1 over Morocco, they're in pretty good. They're in decent shape themselves. Gonna need another result somewhere.
I think Morocco-Portugal drawing wouldn't be the craziest thing, but anything less than a win for Spain is incredible.
It's incredible for Iran.
But yeah, no, I don't think. I think Morocco is got a little more bite than some of the other underdog teams like Saudi Arabia and what have you. So a draw there wouldn't shock me, but yeah.
Elsewhere across the board, Group B is my favorite thing. Currently leading Group B, Iran on 3 points over Spain and Portugal because one game. And that's
probably so many of Iran people have that like screenshot.
The screenshot, yep. It's over. Call the tournament. We're done.
How about this theme? How about so many big dogs drawing? Spain,
Brazil, Switzerland,
Brazil, Argentina, just coming out. Getting a draw. I think there's one more that I'm forgetting, but so many big dogs.
Well, speaking of big dogs, the other result from today that I wanted to highlight is Japan 2-1 Colombia.
Well, did you see any of that game?
I saw the red card at 3 minutes.
That was everything. That game was literally decided in the first 3 minutes.
Well, you can't play 10 versus 11 for 90 minutes.
Germany, the other big dog,
going down to Mexico.
Crazy.
Yeah, the Colombia-Japan game, it's just like...
Yes.
When you go down to 10 men in the 4th minute of the game.
Well, and so maybe you didn't see from seeing that is it was in a circumstance that led to a PK.
Yep, because it was a handball.
So it's a PK and a red card in the first 3 minutes. Yep. I mean, talk about your all-time worst starts.
Yeah, just
that's like
ridiculous.
The time Tom had the Tinder date and he walked into the restaurant, he tripped and fell right into the waitress.
I told you about that. It's not a good day.
And now it's on record.
So it comes like Japan has a decent counterattack, and the ball falls to Shinji Kagawa, and there's an open goal, and Sanchez sticks his arm out, blocks the goal. But honestly, it's a bad decision in that situation because like we'd rather have 11 the rest of the game and be down 1-0 than be down 1-0 anyway and down 10. So he actually really, really messed that up.
Yeah. So that
it's one of those situations. It's so hard in the moment. You know, he might have just reacted, but yeah, he messed that up.
Yep, and that's. Interestingly, H looks interesting after today because Japan and Senegal leading that group over Colombia and Poland is, I don't think, a result we would have expected after day one.
It's not, and it's like, yeah, it's one of the few groups that kind of win a little bit. Is further
great result for Senegal.
Further along the surprise meter than you might have expected. But it's something that I was trying to tell people is like when people were doing the World Cup brackets, it's like, yes, a lot of the big dogs will go through as you expect, but there are always, as in any sporting event, always one or two upsets that no one's accounting for that will happen. And Japan, Senegal is an example. Mexico over Germany is an example. And Iceland's an example. So there's always a few, and you don't know what they are yet. And they still might not even have been on Earth. They might happen in the last 2 match days, but nonetheless.
Other interesting things. Currently leading the goal-scoring charts for the Cup is own goal. There have been 5 own goals scored so far in the World Cup, which is ridiculous. And there have also been a lot of penalties. It feels like, anyway. Like, there's...
But I'm good with that.
I've been good with it, and I've been good with the ones that have been decided by VAR.
And that's what I was going to say. It's like, I'm good with it because VAR is in place. And honestly, some people are kind of critiquing it. It makes me rest easy because I just know that, like, if something really egregious happens, we're going to be, like, okay, because VAR is going to see it.
Yeah, so, and it's just good. VAR is good. I'm pleased with it.
Yeah, seriously. And like even those penalties where I kind of just I talked about the Kyle Walker penalty earlier. I disagreed with it, but because I knew that they were able to VAR and look back at it and still gave the pen, I was like, all right, it brings a certain sense of like comfortability to it. So I like.
What is VAR?
The video assistant referee system. Yeah. So now it's just like it's like about the equivalent change of when NFL first got video replay. Yeah. Remember how big a difference that was?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yep. I think the other interesting...
Wow, it took us almost to the end of the episode.
I know.
Cross-sport referencing.
Yeah, we a lot of soccer to talk about when there's the World Cup.
Yeah.
The other interesting stat, I'm stealing stats from Reddit, the soccer subreddit at this point, but
We're on Reddit. It's 49 minutes in.
I guess there's interesting things on here. I didn't watch games today.
It's great.
Other interesting one, first World Cup since 2002 in which every single game had at least one goal.
Oh, nice.
No 0-0 draws in the first round.
Huh. That's good.
Yeah, that's great. It's good for the game. Even if, as we've mentioned, some of the goals have been like you got your weird
Own
90th
goals.
minute own goals. You've got games being decided by penalties. You've also got great goals. Like we talked about Kolarov's free kick. We talked about Ronaldo's goals. There have been some high quality goals in this World Cup already, and we're only through one match day of all the teams.
No, it's been a great World Cup.
It's been a really fun tournament, and the elements of surprise through some of the teams that we didn't necessarily expect getting these results. Getting Switzerland getting the result against Brazil, Mexico maybe not as big of a surprise from the low end, but getting the win over Germany is a huge result for Mexico.
Yes,
and then Iran getting a victory in the World Cup, Senegal and Japan getting their wins today. There are results for teams that.
It's been a great World Cup, honestly,
and
it's been awesome.
And it's just getting cooking.
Yes.
As we look ahead, just looking through match day 2, we talked about the matches that are going to happen tomorrow, which will be today when you guys are listening to this, unless you're up late tonight.
Are you looking at the fixture list right now?
I am, yeah.
Tell us then who's Germany, Mexico, and Portugal, Spain turned out to be two of the best games, but they also looked like two of the best games. What are the next best games coming up? Don't say Iran anything.
We already talked about that game.
I know,
That would be a spoiler. There aren't as many eye-popping matchups in this game. I think there are some really good ones in match day 3.
Yeah.
The one from Group H of the two losers from today, I think would be interesting with Poland and Colombia, because that's going to be two teams that really, really, really need a result from that game.
Who does Germany play? South Korea?
Germany plays Sweden.
So that'll be a pretty good one.
Germany,
Sweden,
and I think Mexico, South Korea will be interesting as well. Both of those Group F games. But then
when does Argentina play Croatia?
Argentina plays Croatia on Thursday.
That's a good one.
Yep,
that's a pretty tasty one.
France, Peru.
I put some cane sauce on that one.
All right,
and then eat it.
Yeah,
I respect that. I'm interested to see if...
Albeit I would put cane sauce on almost anything.
On a lot of things, yeah. It's very good. Denmark, Australia, if you want to have hope for the Australian team, even a little bit, or just watch Christian Eriksen score bangers.
Whenever France and Denmark play, could be a pretty important game.
Yeah, so then if we go down to match day 3, this is getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, because these will start after... The match day 3... begins Monday the 25th, so it'll be right before we record our next episode. The obvious one I know off the top of my head is England-Belgium, which is going to be a huge game.
For sure.
Uruguay-Russia could be also a very big deal.
I mean, it will. I think it just will.
Yep. And we're having 4 games a day because the games from the groups have to be played at the same time for those match days.
Oh, man, so that's going to be busy.
It's going to be busy. Iceland-Croatia could be a big deal for however that ends up.
Serbia-Switzerland would be a pretty awesome one because that'll be for second place, somewhat likely, if it is still for them.
You mean you don't think Costa Rica are going to get a result against Brazil?
I'm not so sure they will. Mexico-Sweden. For second place in that group if Germany sorts itself out, or for first place in that group.
Mexico at this point should be playing for first in the group.
Their pole position, yeah.
But
so Mexico-Sweden could be awesome.
But you see, have you seen the
Japan-Senegal could be first?
Have you seen the questions about
Neymar?
If Brazil and Mexico?
Oh yeah, I don't know why.
Brazil and Mexico in particular, in that if Mexico, now they've gotten their win over Germany, gets the win of the group, gets first place in the group,
they would likely face Brazil.
And Brazil, after drawing with Switzerland, flops their way to second in their group.
And then you get
Mexico
Germany,
wins their group, beats Germany, and gets Brazil in the round of 16.
Yeah. And those things happen too. And I was trying to tell people that's kind of the same thing about not knowing what upsets are going to happen. Those things happen.
Yep.
People finish second because there's 3 games, and so Brazil, Germany, any of these teams can finish second, and it totally throws the bracket.
Because that's the other thing, like that combination of teams from Group E and Group F. You have likely quarterfinals coming in from Brazil, Germany, Mexico, and I guess Serbia or Switzerland, probably. And that's like the second, if Mexico can get a matchup against Serbia or Switzerland rather than against Brazil, you'd have to think they'd be really happy about that.
Overjoyed.
Yeah.
So
that's a long ways down the road. We're going to be 2 weeks out before we get those brackets decided.
England and Mexico, man, those are my 2 teams I'm rooting for the most. Gotta say.
Yeah, I was happy to see England pull out that result. I was unhappy to see. It was interesting because, boy, what was that? The England was Sunday. Those games were yesterday, no, yesterday was Monday.
England was Monday.
So it was England, Belgium, and South Korea, which feature a combined 8 players from Tottenham Hotspur in those 3 teams.
I've enjoyed that.
I did, except for South Korea lost.
Yeah.
Which was a bummer.
Too bad for Son.
Son could not carry that game, but the Belgian boys looked good. And the English boys were good enough. We'll take it. So with that said, we are wrapping up. We're going to have a lot of games to talk about next week because, as I said, match day 2 of the World Cup will be done before we record next Sunday. All of those games will be done and dusted.
That'll be great. Great look ahead to match day 3 and which games are most important, what they all mean.
Yep. And Minnesota United will have their first game back in MLS play for about 2.5 weeks at this point, which is a challenging game at Colorado. That will be interesting. It's a late one with the time difference. I will be at a family reunion, but I will find a way to watch that game.
Hey, guys.
Hi, I'm pulling this up on my laptop and ignoring all of you. Goodbye. I have every intention of doing that. And we will be back Sunday night to record on our normal time and have a Monday morning episode for you guys next week. Back to normal in a lot of ways with MLS coming back, but with the bonus of the beautiful World Cup and the surprises and fun that it can bring. So with that said, as usual, I am David Naylor. You can find me at Prof. Cedar, Nic Hallett at Prince Hallett, Tom Schreier at T-Schreier3. Check our written content out on zonecoverage.com. We've got NBA draft stuff coming up this week with the NBA draft coming up on Thursday. I'll have stuff written up on that tomorrow or Thursday.
When's the NBA draft?
Thursday.
Ooh.
So, and it's
this Thursday?
This Thursday, 2 days.
Let's go.
There, we got a piece coming up from Dane Moore tomorrow morning about that. We got a lot of coverage coming up. No one knows what's going to happen in that.
Nick's a huge Luka Doncic guy.
We have an enormous NHL draft preview from Ben Remington.
12-pack.
12 pieces from Ben Remington about the NHL draft, which I have not gotten around to checking out yet, but I'm very interested in seeing what he's got down.
Yeah.
Because that's awesome. So we've got your sports coverage. We've got your Minnesota United coverage. We've got all the stuff you need. So with that said, this has been the Minnesota Soccer Podcast. We will see you next week. Peace.